The most money I've ever made has been from owning my own home equity. So today I'm going to be talking about the 2 conditions you need to buy a house here in Christchurch in little old New Zealand, which sits at the bottom of the world. First off, how much of a house you can afford depends on 2 things. One is the house deposit, which is used as a down payment to the bank for being able to borrow money, and the second is enough income to service the mortgage. Both of these will determine how much of a house you can afford to buy. I will go over a practical example so that one day if you want to buy a house you can work it out for yourself. Roll intro. What is up everybody? Welcome to my channel where I talk about personal finance, property investing, and document my stock market journey as I try to figure out how to be a millionaire. If you're new here, I'm Gifford. I'm just a normal guy sharing my knowledge to financial freedom from someone on the lower side of the income bracket. Please hit the like button to massively help the channel out, and subscribe if you're into investing. With that said, let's get on with the video. So before we start to do the calculations, let's start here with this article titled Minimum Wage, No Help, and On the Ladder at 25. Here's how they did it. And why this is important is because like many places around the world, houses continue to go up in value, and most people grow up dreaming to buy a house of their own. While houses can make you money, just like me, sometimes you just want to buy a home to make it your own. However, buying a house has increasingly become difficult. As seen from the chart dating back to 1992, as inflation continues to rise, so do the house prices as everything slowly gets more expensive. As someone who has bought their first home, I know it is a very difficult goal, but one which is rewarding and will make you money in the long term. House prices have become so unaffordable. The government now runs a Kiwisaver scheme that you can have to save for your retirement, but in this scheme, you can use some of the money to be taken out at a one-time deal towards your house deposit. Good stuff by the New Zealand government, but I'll talk more about this later. So I'm going to assume you already have a budget and an emergency fund, which are 2 things I recommend before starting this journey. You can still buy a house without these 2 things, but if you're interested, I've done 2 previous videos on these topics, link in the description below. So first, let's talk about the house deposit. And don't worry, we'll actually go over a real house example at the end, which I will pick and work out some of the rough maths so you know how to do it yourself. So back to the deposit. You'll need to have a minimum of 10%, preferably 20% of the house purchase price. Really, this is just the bank to make sure that you can actually save the money in order for them to lend you the money in return, but also decrease the total amount of money you need to borrow. However, 10 to 20% is a massive amount of money to save up for, so for your first house, I recommend that you get something cheaper so it is affordable. That way you're less likely to get in trouble financially and that you don't lose your house because you can't afford the weekly repayments. Now the deposit is covered, the second thing that you need to figure out is if you can afford the weekly repayments. You'll need to fill out an extensive form with your bank who will go over your financials thoroughly to see if they're able to lend you the money. With that said, how big of a mortgage you can service is worked out to be about 35% of the weekly household income. Let me just repeat that again, it is about 35% of the total household income. So as a simple example, the household income is $1,000, then your maximum mortgage repayments each week would only be $350. So the higher household income, the more expensive the house you can afford to buy. But now let's go over to the computer and let's do a practical example so all this makes sense. And let's go now. Okay, coming up to the computer, the first thing we need to do is we need to find a house. So I've gone on trademe.co.nz, which is a New Zealand website. Here we can see that the house price is $458,000. It's a nice 3-bedroom house with 1 bath, new place, and it's in Horswell, Christchurch, New Zealand. So it's in a pretty nice suburb. Let's just have a look at the pictures of the house. And on the outside, it looks pretty nice. It's all pretty new. There's a nice kitchen, more pictures, kitchen, lounge, etc, etc. This would be something I would consider in today's market. And we can see that it's got 2-car garaging, which is pretty nice and handy. So jumping into sorted.co.nz, we're going to use this mortgage calculator to tell us our repayments. But first we have to decide what the deposit is going to be. So typically, just so we don't get confused, we're going to use a 10% deposit. So getting out a calculator, we're going to calculate how much the loan's going to be if we were to put 10% down. So the house is $458,000. multiplied by 90% of the house value. So then we'll go to, so it'll be $412,200 will be the loan amount. So if we take that away for $458,000, So we would need $45,800 for the house deposit to be able to purchase that house. Now the next thing on this calculator, we need to find the interest rate. So this website here called interest.co.nz is used, and it shows many New Zealand banks and the interest rates. As you can see, there's a lot of interest rates here with different periods of 6 months to all the way to 5 years. But what we're going to do is we're just going to use a generic 3% across it to make it simple. So going back to our calculator, we're now going to change the interest rate to be 3%. And the term will be over 30 years. And we'll hit weekly. From this calculator, we can see that our weekly repayments is now $401. So for this house, it's 10% deposit with 3% over 30 years will be $401 per week. So the good thing about this website is it actually tells you how much the repayments are per week, how much you're going to be ending up paying, which is $625,256 over the whole lifetime of the loan. And it also breaks down the interest, which is $213,056 over 30 years. And the nice thing about this infograph here, that if you were to up your payments, it shows how much interest you'd be paying and how much more of the capital and in total, and how quickly you can pay it off. But obviously, your weekly repayments would increase. Okay, now let's work out the same thing, but this time with 20% deposit, which is what I recommend. So you're going to have to save a lot longer, but the loan amount will be a lot less and the repayments will be a lot more manageable. So if we go to 458,000 multiplied that by 0.8, which is 80%, the loan now is 366,400. 366,400. Sticking with our 3%, and we'll change this to 30 years. You can see that it is now decreased by $50 a week at $356. So while $50 doesn't seem like a lot each week, it actually is over a long period of time. That's why I always recommend to buy a cheaper house so your repayments are lower. You have to remember that this loan is over 30 years and you got to consider that interest rates will go up eventually. So you got to make sure you got to have some leeway. Let me just show you by what I mean. For example, if interest rates will go up to 10%, your repayments will drastically go up, so you have to make sure that you can pay that amount of money. So the other two things I want to talk about is a mortgage broker and also the Kiwisaver. So if this is really daunting for you, you can get the help of a mortgage broker who are really helpful, and their service is free. They get paid by the banks when your loan is approved. I did not use one myself because I wanted to do the whole process and learn along the way, but I recommend you use one if you're not confident. The other thing I wanted to touch on is using your Kiwisaver for your first home. Now I'll just point you to this website here, which is the ird.govt.nz. I'll put the link in the description. So I'm not really familiar with Kiwisaver as we didn't use it on our first home. So I'm just going to point you to this site here because the conditions change all the time and it's best that you talk to these people directly. Just like when you're getting a loan with your bank, you talk to the bank directly because they'll work with your individual finances. Just other things to consider when buying your house: you will be charged a low equity fee if it's under 20% deposit, which can cost you thousands. There's no way to avoid this. You just have to pay it if you want the loan. The other thing you need to remember is that you need to pay for the insurance of your house when you buy it, and also you need to insure your contents of your house. Also, when doing all this transaction, you need to pay for the lawyer's fees. I would make sure I would set aside for this particular house $10,000 to $15,000 before you can actually move in and do the transaction. So hopefully you've learned the basics of buying your first home. Anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you saving for your first home, or are you just happy renting and keeping the extra money and invest it elsewhere? Even though this was the path I took, everybody's different and we shouldn't follow other people if it's not right for us. Subscribe to follow my journey as I try to figure out how to become a millionaire. I also document my weekly stock market investing. With that said, have an awesome weekend and I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.